lunchtime. It's a time where we have the cue in the brain that it's time to go and eat some food. So the cue to go and eat food will definitely happen, but we have a small little thought. The cue to think, and there is a food for thought today. I take this from Miss Divyani Kapoor, who just mentioned about, and she woke up right now, who mentioned about the Teddy story. The Teddy story is a very close to my heart story. As Hasini just now mentioned, 30 years, and that's my journey. Started at a slum school, and I was very keen why Teddies don't learn in the same way that we always think about students who are quick, fast, yes ma'am in the class and raise their hands, always trying to secure teachers' attention and get a 90%. All over the world, universities, higher education are so considered about the 90%, 80% and the yes ma'ams, and the Teddies are lost in the bargain. This was my natural research. I'm not a PhD in it, but it has been my curious mind that intrigued me to understand what happens to the Teddies and why is that we teachers cannot bring the Teddies into our attention, into the radar of thoughts, and do something about the Teddies. Why is that one Mrs. Thompson did not look into clearly what the Teddy wanted? I have a true story, which I'm not going to be talking about it more, because my topic is one of the very important SDG goal, which is inclusive education. In the whole scheme of thought of general education, we are constantly trying to improve pedagogy, learning strategies in the classroom, leaving behind a whole bunch of kids who are not into the attention of the teacher because they have a different ability which the teacher was, she's incapacitated to identify, let's say that. In my experience, I have seen from close quarter children who have a different ability and are made to sit in a general classroom are often neglected. Because you're not able to express, you don't know what to say, you don't know how to say, and therefore you're not the teacher's business in any which way. So today, I come back to the very important point of bringing inclusivity into the classroom right there when they're in the threshold of education, that is in the primary years. I come from a school which is one of the best developed schools in India, where inclusive education is practiced, not only letter, spirit, we walk it every day. Of course, the school is blessed because it was the founding direction that we got, the guiding principle that the school has to bring in students with all abilities together, sitting in the same classroom, learning the same lesson, and of course the desired outcome have been different, but it was enriching. Wonderful to see that they graduate with all the other IB graduates and they are accepted in prestigious universities both in the country and outside. So coming back to this question, I was thinking all the way about, I mean, that's a fictitious name, Teddy, the journey. Why is it very important to have inclusive education? And inclusivity should start not by government framing a policy. It should start at your level, the educators. It should start in all school. It should start in your mind. Why do you think inclusive education has become the need and the most important building block of the hour? Why do you think so? You're all teachers, you're all educators, young and old. Let's talk about this most unwanted topic or not well discussed. Why is inclusivity so important? What do we gain by it?
I think we gain empathy.
We gain empathy, yes. When do we teach that? Not when we are as old as my age. we have to teach that right there when they enter school, in the preschool years, and they move on in the early years. The topic for discussion today is early years education. And we are supposed to make it an inclusive school. How do you think a financial growth or an economic growth of the country can have the accelerated way of moving, a leapfrog rather we say, if we don't include everybody in the society? If we don't tap into the talent of each and every individual? If we don't harness and develop employability skill, varieties of it? We're only thinking of IT, coding, this one and that one. Thank you, ma'am, for bringing the stream education. IT, coding, computing, logical thinking, critical thinking, these are skills which should be incorporated into the pedagogy, into the curriculum. Let's not talk about international curriculum. Let me talk about curriculum that is present in your country, present in the country that we are, or in Bangladesh or Nepal, whichever place. It has to begin there, because we are here as teachers addressing a diaspora of students in the whole milieu of things. We can't leave this section out. And in many of your minds, if you think that how do we make our schools ready, it's not a rocket science. Let me tell you that. My school, it just has a classroom like this. And it's a ready school. From 20 admission, I actually brought it to 42. My personal story is very, very touching, and that's the reason why I champion inclusivity into the classroom, where all children are taught, regardless of their ability, in the same classroom space with no gender disparity at all. They are brought into the same space and they are taught by the teacher, of course with differentiated strategy. Now you may ask a question, how do we do that? That's where the teacher education and the training and the Honorable Minister just mentioned, teachers need to undergo a new set of training to reskill and upskill themselves. Because as one of my learned friend, Ms. Shagarika, Dr. Shagarika mentioned, we have the VUCA world. We are now moving away from that world, but we are not bereft. We are not bereft of uncertainty, my dear friends. Uncertainty is every step of our lives. And therefore, a new kind of preparedness is important in all of us. And the preparedness that I'm talking about is not just theory. A theory, of course, is going to help you teach what is special education. What is the preparedness that I'm talking to all of you today? The preparedness of the mind. The preparedness to remove the barriers, which are human barriers, most often human barriers of ignorance. The preparedness to remove any kind of stereotype labeling a child. That's important, my dear friends. A child always not be dancing to your tunes to perform a 90 or an 80. A standardized test will always not give you the right results. But a child is a human child born with capacities that we failed to identify. We need to understand what skills, therefore, this child can bring into the classroom. That's where, my dear friends, my dear teachers, in this August gathering, I urge you, you need a compassionate heart. That's very important. You cannot be one Mrs. Sampson, just to remove the thought from the head that Teddy's not performing, it's good to tell the principal and that's it. You need a heart to understand why. Ask your question, why the Teddy didn't perform. How could I tailor and customize my teaching ability and not limit the child by denigrating him to a different space and call him as a special child. In most schools we do that. I'm talking about a world where, Council of International Education, it is called CIS, champions inclusivity, diversity, and access, equal access to all. I'm talking about that world which our Prime Minister wishes to see skilled people, regardless of who you are and where you come from. I'm talking about that world where we as human beings are not discriminated on the basis of either the skin color or the nationality or the passport, but respected for our skills and talents that we bring to the table. We are all able to learn. All children can learn. Please understand that. They don't learn the way you teach them, so therefore you tailor and make different IEPs. Now what is IEP? It is actually individualized education plan. You plan your strategy, your lesson, redesign the whole classroom setup and make it ready for all children to come and be a part and parcel, integral part of your life. You call yourself passionate, and I'm sure I call myself passionate. You call yourself passionate teachers and educators for tomorrow. Where is that passion if the child is not being able to respond? That's where the inquiry mind sets in for the teacher, because we are all learners at the end of the day. We need to ask the question, why is the child not responding? Will he be responding if I use a different manipulator, a different technique? So we all know about the different skills that Howard Gardner has brought into, and we have to be using those skills to understand. Does he understand the visual way? Does he understand the kinesthetics way? Does he understand the spatial skills? What is the skill that we can use our differentiate strategy in the classroom the child can understand better? The child is a normal child. We just label the child and push him in a basket by saying slow learner. Oh my God, he just doesn't understand anything what I say. Oh my God, he's dyslexic. Oh my God, how do I identify his scripts? How do I grade him? Now, grading is not the question. How do I even interpret what he's writing? First of all, do you know that you haven't even identified that he's as knowledgeable as anybody else? It is just the script. It's just writing. Can we use a different kind of technique to identify what he's written in the paper? Can we give him certain concession? He's unable to write because the gripping hasn't happened. And that I'm talking about grade 10 when we give IGCSE concession, and in the diploma program we have lots and lots of concession. But why a foreign curriculum has to give us this thought? Why? We are Indians and we are Southeast Asian over here. We are a globe by ourselves. We are very powerful. Why? I'm not a foreigner. My personal life history about my own son is where I come from with so much of courage and conviction. He's a graduate of a huge university in US. He was labeled by saying, "Tere se kuch nahi hoga, you're rubbish." He's a little slow learner, he was. Nobody identified that skill, that he just needed a little tweaking, individual lesson plan. Make it in a different way that he learns and not dictate the way I want him to learn. But today the same child has been performing in the United States and he's a postgraduate in a discipline which uses all the STREM formula. He knows everything. He's like anybody of any children on the road. And he's employable. So it is
Piaget theory that most of the students, they give the right answer. But
yes.
Who is giving a different answer is the real intelligent.
Yes.
Madam, he couldn't give any answer because first of all, the classroom was a threatening classroom, very oppressive. Because everybody is raising the hand, this child couldn't. So there is a fear in the child for which he couldn't come out with the right answer. And he knows that if he comes out with the wrong answer, the teacher is
It's not
not
a wrong
going to-
answer. It is a different answer.
The teacher is not going to forgive him. So what I take also, how do we make our schools very inclusive? One of the things that Mr. Dheeraj has written in his book, Dr. Dheeraj, I'm sorry, safe environment. All schools, primary school, Montessori, early years, older years, middle years, make your school as safe as possible for all learners to feel belonged, not to be discriminated, not to be feel shunned out. Sit over there, I'm going to deal with this group of children, I'll deal with you later. No, we'll all be together. As much as we are in this conference, we don't look alike. Our cultures are so different. Your breakfast was wonderful, our breakfast is different. And I come from a different state of India, it's very, very different. We are all same, human on this planet. This is one globe and we have one world. We do not have a second world. We have to be together. We have to respect each other's talents. So the inclusive classroom, this inclusive classroom will also help the teacher to develop the empathy, as somebody said, and respect. Respect is the buzzword over here. If I don't respect you because you are different, will you give me the space to understand who am I? It cannot happen. Respect is two ways. It can't be one way. The teacher has to respect children, and the children will ultimately become Dr. Theodore to give the respect to the teacher. The story, of course, she tweeted, but that is the story of millions of children who are left behind, who are never given a thought. And they are turned out to be one of the best. We just didn't open our eyes. So the classroom, the schools have to be a very non-threatening way of dealing with children. We need to customize, keeping their skills in mind, not the way I want. We cannot have standardized tests, means one shoe fits all. Everybody is going to wear a sari today. It can't be like that. People should be given the choice and the voice. Children at that stage should be given the liberty to say what he wants to say. You cannot muzzle the voice. And if you do it then, you have already set the tone of becoming underconfident children. I was one. For me to speak up on the stage, I used to tremble and I was always told, sit down. You cannot speak. So it was somebody who said, you can. Yes, you can. You have the power in your voice. I did not. I was a very underconfident child. I was left behind, always. So remember, friends, when we are talking about a world that needs to move with economic growth, prosperity, we need a world that needs respect, that needs to be identified as one power. We need a world where we know what to do with our kids. We don't want others to teach us. We, the Southeast Asian world, are one world. In my mind, we are together in this journey, and I begin at a stage of 3+, 4+, and 5+, where inclusivity has to begin with. It will then lead to what he said. Financial growth and economic growth, we are talking so much at Madison, we are talking in Japan, we are talking in all these countries. How can that happen if half of your population, whether in Sri Lanka or in India or in Bangladesh, are not fully employed? Are we teaching them employability skill? And we are not. In the school, the teachers are not. So going to the market, what he said, and what somebody else said, going to the market, it's important. Those are skills. Everybody cannot be Elon Musk or people like that. Everybody has come into this world. Every child is unique, has come into this world with a special gift. It's your duty to tap, understand, identify, be compassionate, and steer the way that the child will be the best, and not push the child with standardized tests. Your minister, Honorable Minister of Sri Lanka, I'm so happy, I feel blessed, I feel privileged to have met him this morning. He's a visionary in himself. He's not a politician, he's a visionary, he's a strategic planner, and I can see a new Sri Lanka coming after a political turbulence tomorrow. It cannot happen overnight. But he is thinking about a lofty goal, a bigger picture, to include everybody in this journey. This is our journey. We have to move on. We have to understand that if we don't stand with our firm conviction, strong determination, they are not going to come and push us and give us that hope. So with this, I would like to end this conversation with a small food for thought this afternoon. Let's make this world inclusive. Let us just not be worried about the SDG goal. Let's have the inclusivity first of all in the mind. Let's be a barrier-free world. If a child is unable to read mathematics or interpret mathematics, please don't shun the child by saying, logic is not your say, logic is not your forte, please. Logic is his forte, you have to only tailor it into the individual lesson plan, IEP, I repeat. Your school has to be ready. Most primary schools and secondary schools, even in our country, I know for sure, do not have the ramp. Now we come under international accreditation, CIS. They always have emphasized, where is your ramp? How do you think that a child with a little disability on his walking gait will be able to climb up the steps the way a normal child can do? How did you normalize this relationship? Therefore, schools will have to have the resources, a small little budget to have the resources. Manipulatives, chalk and talk, gone. You will need to learn how to use different kind of strategy other than the chalk and talk and a bit of technology. What if the child is visually impaired? I'm very proud to talk about the child who is visually impaired, has passed the IB with flying colors, and he's now in Cambridge. And the Cambridge, he has chosen Cambridge because they have a ramp. He's absolutely, he can't see anything. He doesn't use braille. He's got a software and he's got something to push that software, and we gave him the scribe. So if such people can do miracles in the world, why can't we think about starting it that low, right there in the early years of education, just when many of you don't even know that they are born with certain kind of ability, where we need to tap, identify, and get them going. We all can do that. And with this hope and a prayer, to make this world a very inclusive world through you, the educators, I wish to see that we walk the talk of diversity, inclusivity, and access to all children, regardless of who they are and where they come from. Thank you so much.